everybody. My name is Kaya Wirtz, and I'm the speech therapist for Desert Sands at Gerald Ford. And I'm doing a video here today to kind of talk about working on those K and G sounds. So just to give you some tips on how to work on producing those sounds with your kids at home. When I give you worksheets to work on, these are kind of some of the tips and strategies that you're going to use for helping your kids to get the correct production of those sounds. So when we think about producing sounds, we start at the isolation level, which is just the sound, and then move to word level, and then phrase level, sentence level, and conversation level. Most of your kids are going to be working on these sounds either in isolation or at the word level. So I'm going to start with some tips and tricks on how to help with it at the isolation level. And then at the end of this video, I also have a few pointers about working at the word level as well. Okay, so when you're working on the K and G sounds, those sounds are going to be formed by moving your tongue up and back into the back of your mouth. So the first thing that you're going to do is ask your child, say k or say g. And then if they're able to do that already, then that's great. And you can go on to working at the word level. If they are not able to imitate you when you're producing that sound, that's when you're going to start working through some of these tips. So it's kind of a hierarchy that you'll work along. So the first thing that you'll do is just say, open your mouth. And you're going to open your mouth and let them watch you make the sound. So point out, have them look at your mouth and see what your tongue is doing, and then have them try to imitate it. So you're going to go, so you can kind of see on the screen that my tongue is moving up and towards the back of my mouth. So you want your child to really be able to see that and hopefully to be able to imitate that sound. If that doesn't work, the next thing that you would do is use some visual cues. So what I use with your kids is to go like this and tap on the bottom of your chin, like where it meets the throat right here. And that's kind of their visual cue that they need to remember to move their tongue to the back. So if you're starting to work on it and then the child says t, you go k, 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 and to kind of give them that visual paired with hearing the sound is a kind of prompt that they need to keep their tongue in the back of their mouth and produce that sound correctly. That's the visual cue that you would use. If that is still not working and your child really needs a more physical approach in order to get that movement of their tongue, because what happens is when we produce the T and the D sounds, those are sounds made at the front of your mouth with the tip of your tongue. And the K and G are going to be at the back of your mouth with the back of your tongue. So if your child is producing like T and D sounds as a replacement for K and G, they need to learn how to move their tongue to produce that sound. So what you would do is hold down the tip of their tongue right here. And it's going to kind of sound funny, but that's okay because they're learning the placement more than the correct sound in this case. So, and if you don't want to, of course, put your fingers inside your child's mouth, you can either have them hold the tip of their tongue if they're capable of doing that, or you can do so using like a lollipop or a popsicle stick, something that is kind of fun and that will help facilitate that, but of course not using too much force, just enough to kind of keep their tongue right there so that the tongue tip is not coming up and the back of the tongue has to do all the work. Okay, so now let's talk about for a few minutes kind of what you're working on when you're working at the word level. There are a few, I'm going to give you some materials to work with. But I did want to point out one thing real quick, which is the difference between words that have conflicting sounds in them and words that don't. So the example that I have here is cat and car. So when we have the word cat, we have the k, k, k sound at the front, but also the t sound at the back. So most of the time when a child cannot get the K sound, it's the T sound that they're replacing it with. So having the T sound in the same word can be really confusing. And we have this process of assimilation where what you're going to hear is tat. And it can be hard for kids to get away from that because they're already used to saying that T sound instead. And now you have the T sound in the same word. So that is a higher difficulty level than if you use words like car or, something else, because R can be a difficult sound too. But something that is not conflicting. So when you have your K and your G sounds, words that have T and D also in them are going to be more confusing and more difficult for your kids, which is not to say that they can't do it, but usually when we start working at that level, you would break it down by saying k, a, t, k, a, t, and then they would slowly start to lessen the distance between those sounds to help them be able to get the whole word. So hopefully you find this video and these tips helpful in working with your kids on these sounds at home. And if you have any questions or need more materials, then please feel free to let me know. And thanks for watching.